Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you're good. Today I'm here for another book review and I finally changed my shirt, so I own other clothes, I promise. I'm here to review House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin Craig. I read this a couple weeks ago and I'm so excited for this review because I really like this one a lot. I hope a lot of people pick this up if you haven't read it because it was just so entertaining and consuming and atmospheric and a little spooky, and I really liked it. And it's just this book isn't perfect by any means, but sometimes you just need that entertaining read that can just pull you in and you don't have to not necessarily not think too much about it, but you just have to just enjoy it because this is one of those books that you just have to enjoy and just be happy that you read it. I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, House of Salt and Sorrows. Before we get into the book itself, let's talk a little bit about the author, Erin Craig. I can't really tell you a lot about her. There's not much that I could find, but House of Salt and Sorrows is her debut. It came out 2019, I want to say around August 2019. It is a young adult fantasy horror, and it is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, so that's really cool. Her second book that is going to be published in 2021 is called Small Favors. Sorry, anyway, they were walking by. Distractions. Her second book is called Small Favors. It's going to be published in 2021, and I am definitely going to check it out. I don't know what it is about in the slightest, but I really liked House of Salt and Sorrows, so I will read more from this author. Anyway, that's all I can really tell you about her. She's a writer. House of Salt and Sorrows was her debut, a great debut. Moving on to the book itself. This book, like I said, is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, but personally coming from me, this review is coming from someone who hasn't read the original story, nor who really knows what the story is in of itself. I kind of looked into it, but I didn't read it, nor did I really care. I just really wanted to read the book itself and just enjoy it, so that's what I did. But this story, House of Salt and Sorrows, follows the story of 12 sisters who live in a manor by the sea on this little small island. A lot of people think that this family is cursed by their gods because slowly, one by one, each sister seems to die, and they die in weird circumstances, whether it's an illness or an accident or stumbling off a cliff. They just keep dying, and it's a spooky premise in and of itself because off the bat you're wondering what's going on to these sisters. Are they really cursed? Is someone out to get them? What's going on here? So we follow our main character, I believe her name is Annalie, and she seems to be the only one of all of her sisters who's saying, hey, you know, her previous sister just died from falling off a cliff, and everyone thinks it's an accident. No one seems to be questioning that except her. So she kind of takes it into her own actions to figure it out and kind of investigate, if you would. That's when some of the fantasy elements start to come into play in this story. They travel to these dances and dance the night away by going through these portals in a way. But that's all I'm gonna say on the summary itself. I found this story, like I said, to be so entertaining, page-turning. You are just so invested in finding out what is actually going on. Is this family cursed? Is someone out to get them? Is there a vendetta? What's going on? Are they actually cursed by gods? Is that a thing? Or is it more down to earth, real? So I constantly was questioning, is this more horror? Is this more fantasy? What's going on here? And I loved that because as a reader, you're just falling into the story, trying to figure out what was going on. And maybe I am just a dum-dum and I can't figure out twists, but honestly, I didn't see the twist coming. I had some ideas, and what eventually happened could have been, I guess, right in your face obvious from the beginning, but because the twist in the end was in a way so obvious, I didn't see it coming because I couldn't believe that was actually what it was. But then when it happened in the way that it was explained and pulled off, it did make sense, and so I was satisfied. Does that make sense? I'm not sure. So I really liked this a lot, and I loved how atmospheric and at times really spooky this story was. It was a lot more chilling than I had been anticipating. I didn't know how how much this book would really delve in the horror. And there were some scenes, one scene in particular, where I got goosebumps and I honestly was a little bit freaked out. And maybe that's because I was reading this book by myself in the middle of the night where I live. It was just me and I was alone reading this, so maybe that's why I was scared, because I was by myself. I only had my cats, so I don't know. But honestly, I found this to be quite spooky. So if you are a horror fan, I would honestly really recommend this, because there are some scenes that just were like, ah. So yeah. Okay, moving on to, I guess, the characters. That's probably where I say this book kind of struggles the most, is with characters, because a lot of the characters are not very, we have 12 sisters, right? So you think that they would be very different from one another. You would think that they'd have a lot of different personalities, but honestly, a lot of them were just the same. There's just nothing was very distinct about each of these characters, except our main character, honestly, who was just trying to figure out why her sisters were dying. Everyone else was just interested in going to these fancy balls, dancing the night away, or they were interested in boys, or they just didn't care. So unfortunately, the character development was a little bit I mean, I was still very interested in what was going to happen to these sisters, but I just couldn't really, you know, I couldn't fully describe a character to you because they just weren't fleshed out that well enough. I'm not gonna remember them because they don't really stick out in my brain. So there is that. So I will say that if you're a character-driven reader, you might not enjoy this, because we just don't have a lot going on with the characters here. It's more about the mystery. It's just the mystery of the story, which is the biggest highlight, and I love a good mystery, so I was enthralled throughout the entire thing. Besides that, I will say that the fantasy elements were very minimal in the beginning, and then they became very prominent in the end, and I wish that I would have known going into this book how prominent they would have been, just for my own liking, because it started off as more of just like a mystery, then it turned kind of horror, then it got into a lot of fantasy, and then I was just like, wait, where is this going? I did enjoy the ride, of course, but I just wish I would have known what I was getting into. Then again, this book is labeled as fantasy horror, so I guess I should have known from the beginning. Again, I'm just kind of a dum-dum, so I don't know. I really did like this. I will say also, the last thing that is going to be a hit or a miss for some people is the romance. There is a romance with two characters in this book, the main character and someone else who I'm not going to talk about because it's just better to go in blindly. And honestly, it was just okay. I feel like the story was fine, would have been fine with or without the romance, just for my own personal taste. But it's a romance that I will say I didn't mind, but I wish that the friendship of the story, there's a friendship that our main character has with this other boy, like a childhood friend. His name was Fisher, and I wish she would have been bonding with him more, as opposed to just going after this other guy who she met and just automatically was kind of not necessarily head over heels for, but she was definitely more interested in this new guy as opposed to her old friend who you could tell had feelings for her. I wanted them to be together, not these two to be together, and it went that way as opposed to the way I wanted, and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, I didn't mind. I'm sorry, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're a fan of romance, then I think you might like this. But if you're not a fan of romance, then this might bug you. So I am very middle ground when it comes to romance. I kind of enjoy it, I kind of don't care, but if it's written really well, then I kind of like it, and blah blah blah. So yeah, I did really like the resolution of the story, and overall I really enjoyed it. It was a very entertaining read, and it left me quite spooked. So I am going to recommend House of Salt and Sorrows to you guys, because I just, like I said, I really enjoy it. Also, it's set near the sea, and that's just so spooky, yeah, okay. That's all I really have to say for today. If you have read it, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions down below, and I hope you guys have a great one, and I will see you later. Bye!